Hello, and welcome to the Project Elected podcast. Project Elect is a nonpartisan nonprofit whose goal is pretty simple. We want to get more Latter-day Saint women involved in public service. On this podcast, we interview amazing Latter-day Saint women who are involved in public service. Hi, my name is Audrey Perry-Martin. I'm the founder of Project Elect and the host of this podcast. I am here today talking to Marissa Jackson. She is running for city council in Huntington Beach, which is one of my favorite little California beach towns. So I'm excited to talk to Marissa and see how her journey went and how she got to the point to be running for city council in Huntington Beach. Marissa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. I would love it if you would just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and your experiences and how you decided to run for office.
I'm the oldest of four girls in my family. I grew up raised in the church, and we were actually Air Force family, so we moved around every 2 years. And then when we moved to Colorado, my dad retired from the military, and I was able to finish off my high school there and then start in junior college. And I started getting into politics at college and ran for Senate at the college level. And then I ran for student government president, and I won. And I was able to be the student government president for the college in my little hometown, Colorado Springs, and then met my husband, and we started raising our family there. After my husband was able to be more independent with work, we decided we wanted to move to California through a lot of prayer, but we decided that was where we needed to be. So we moved to Huntington Beach, and ever since I was a teenager, I knew I needed to get involved in government in some shape, way, or form. And with the political climate today and all that families are facing right now and what we've been taught in the gospel, I just feel like there's an urgency to get involved. And I felt like after much prayer, we needed to get involved. And I guess right now is the time to do it. So we're doing it.
Yeah. You talk about a lot of prayer to get into it and the political climate, which it's not great. These days, nobody thinks it's great. Maybe the political consultants like it because they're making a lot of money. But did you ever, when you were praying, did you have a feeling that this is what you were supposed to do? Did you want to ask and then ask, or were you prompted to ask? Like, how did that process work for you when you're deciding to run for office and you're jumping into something that might be nasty?
I knew as a teenager I was supposed to get involved in it, but I didn't know the timing of it. But when COVID hit, my family and us, we were all here in California, and all my kids were starting school, but they were on the computer screen all day. And I was sick of it. I think we were all getting sick of it. So we felt like it was the right thing to do to pull them out and for me to homeschool them for a time. And during that time, I asked one of my friends who is homeschool, like that's her thing. She's a homeschool mom. I said, what do you do to teach your kids about the Constitution, about social studies? And she said, I use the 5,000-Year Leap book. And I was like, what? I never heard of that. What is that book? And I was like, okay, I'm going to trust her. I'm going to buy this book. And I started reading this book to my children. And I said, oh my gosh, you guys, this is amazing. Like, this talks about the Constitution. It talks about the principles of freedom that is required for a society to be free. It's written by Cleon Skousen, and I recommend everyone to read it. It's an amazing book. The introduction talks about how this country and our forefathers and this land was preserved for the time that we're in now, for us to have a free nation, to prepare to have the truth and all knowledge brought to this land. I just love how it introduces those key concepts of a free nation. So I was getting really into it. It really got me fired up because I already had my degree in political science and my bachelor's in political science with emphasis in public administration. So having that background already and then reading that book to my children, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is really important. And my kids were like, this is getting boring, Mom. Do we need to keep reading this book? I was like, this is so good. Okay, fine. You can go play or we can go on to the next subject. But that kind of was one of the stepping stones for me that got me on that path again, because I had taken a break from politics, being mom full time. It got me fired up about what's going on in our country and our city, and I wanted to just get involved. After reading that book and then finding out there was a movie called The Sound of Freedom. I don't know if you heard of it or watched it. It's really a scary movie, really eye-opening. It's on human trafficking. And that is actually a big issue here in California and around the world, this country. I didn't realize that. So having 5 children and being a mom in this day and age, I'm like, no, we cannot allow this kind of stuff to happen. I can't just sit there and watch it happen. I know from my background, my bachelor's degree in public administration, one of the main things they teach is if you want to make a difference, get involved and vote. And that was 2 key things I take away from the degree. That's what kind of led me to this point, really.
That's a great story. So how did your family react when you told them that you were going to run for office?
So after reading this book and watching the movie and seeing what's going on in our country and just watching the news, my husband's like, Marissa, I think you should run for city council. I was like, what? It shocked me at first. I was like, okay, that's fine. Like maybe later. He's like, no, I think you should run now. I'm like, what? Sometimes he jokes, but this was really serious. Like he was being serious about it. So I was like, okay, he's being serious about this. I better take it seriously too. We actually prayed about it and I just had a peaceful feeling about it. I was like, okay, that's a confirmation to me right there. But I was having lots of doubts along the way. Okay, I don't know. I'm sure it's a good thing, but is right now the right time? So I'd ask follow-up questions when I'm praying. I'm like, really? Is it right now? And should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And I was like, yeah, you just need to do this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go in as a leap of faith and do this. So telling my husband, I like, okay, yeah, I prayed about it too. I guess I feel good about it. He's like, yeah, I think you should. And then we told our kids and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds good, Mom. We're not surprised because they just weren't surprised.
Yeah, you'd been reading the political books. They knew you were. Yeah. It was your thing.
And we get into heated conversations at home about what's going on around the country, and we're just like, okay, yeah, it wasn't that much of a surprise to them. And then I told my extended family and my parents, and they were like, oh, yeah, because you've had this background, you've got this degree. It makes sense. Yeah. And they're like, are you sure it's right now, though? I'm like, I guess so, right now.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We got to jump in.
Yeah.
We're just going to do it. Everyone's been supportive. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. How have you put together a campaign team or a campaign or figured out what to do? Because this is your first time running for public office. You ran in college, but this is a different ballgame, I'm imagining.
So after we decided to run, I actually, because of our church congregation that we go to, one of the ladies that's in our church congregation actually has her son who used to be the former mayor. I told her my interest in running and she said, oh yeah, you need to talk to my son. So I went straight to him and said, hey, I'm thinking of running for city council. And he said, oh yeah, you should totally run. I was like, wait a second, you don't even know me. And he's like, my mom brags about you guys and your family all the time. Because she sees you at church all the time, and she brags about you when we get together at home. I'm like, wow, that's very nice of her. So he's like, yeah, you should run, and I recommend you do this and this and this. And I was like, okay, I'm writing as fast as I possibly can with all the tips he's giving me. He directed me to certain people I need to talk to, and it was really good. But there's only so much he could help me with. And then just through happenstance, it's interesting. You get yourself out there, you let people know, and then all of a sudden it opens doors for you for opportunities. You meet certain people along the way that you would have never met unless you were heading in that path, in that direction. And my husband and I felt like it was a good idea to go out to Maui to help the families in Lahaina that were affected by the fire. While we were out there, we did a service project and we were able to meet a group there. And one of the ladies there in our group we were working with, organizing donation supplies, she actually is a PR person. That's her business, entrepreneurial kind of work. And she actually lives in LA. She's like, I do this and this. I'm like, oh, that's cool because I'm running for city council and that would be interesting. Maybe we could connect kind of thing. And I dropped the conversation after leaving Maui. And then she reconnected with me a couple months later. And she's like, are you still interested in like me helping you with city council stuff? I can help you. I was like, oh, I was actually thinking about that because I'm overwhelmed on what to do next. And she was like, actually, I have this program you can try, see if this would be a good fit for you. And eventually I was like looking at what she offered, like maybe that might not be that great of a fit. And she said, okay, maybe I have a thought. There's another guy that lives just next door to you guys in Newport Beach. And he's a campaign advisor. I'm friends with him. And actually, I met him in Maui as well. We met at a church service while we were there doing volunteer work. I was like, oh, this is quite a connection we've got going on here. She put me in contact with him. And then connecting with him, he basically put me on the path where I've been organizing the campaign. And he's my campaign advisor now. So he helps me and he's trying to help me put a team together right now, actually.
That's fantastic. That story is amazing because it just people you know who knew somebody else or put you in touch with somebody else and it just all is working out. Because that intimidates a lot of people to run, right? They don't know where to start. They don't have all these political contacts. And you prayed about it. You thought you should run and you went for it and things just line up in place.
Yeah, it's a trusting in God. And like what Elder Bednar says, you step in the dark a little bit. And then once you step in the dark and then you make another step and then the light opens and it shows the next step you're supposed to take. I feel like that's literally what I'm doing right now is, okay, what's the next right thing for me to do? Like from Frozen 2.
I'm like Anna, the Frozen song.
Yeah. I was like, that's what I'm trying to do. I just need to do the next right thing. And what's the next right thing? Because I don't know the full view of what's supposed to happen or happen. I just need to do the next right thing. The next right thing. I keep saying that.
Yeah. That's a great metaphor for a campaign, right? You don't know how it's going to turn out. There's always surprises and you just have to do what's right. What's next? A lot of campaigns can be negative these days. Have you faced any of that? And if so, how have you been handling kind of the negativity that can come with politics these days?
When I filed my intent to run, I immediately got a phone call from the mayor pro tem. I did give her a heads up that I was planning on running or getting in. I didn't say exactly what I was going to do, but I said I wanted to get involved. And then the next day, she sees that I filed for intent to run, and she's like, Marissa, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, this is me. I'm doing it. I'm running. And she's like, this is going to be really intense. It's going to, like take up a lot of your time. You have your own family and you've got kids at home still. This is going to be a full-time job. You know what you're getting into? And she was just questioning my motives behind doing it. And at that point, I was still unsure myself what my issues were that I was running on. I was just like getting my feet wet still and doing the next right thing. I just felt like that was the next right thing for me to do. I was just getting a lot of doubting questions like, I don't know, you're just a mom. And I'm like, yeah, but that's okay, I think. And there are a lot of moms. I feel like I would represent a lot of people in Huntington Beach who are just like me. I don't think that's a viable argument. And I've had people cuss me out for running. And I'm like, okay, first off, that was inappropriate. My husband has given me advice and said, Marissa, the people are going to say some rude things, some mean things to you. You're going to have to ignore it, really. I feel like I need to just put the blinders on and focus what the real issue is and why I'm really running, and the fact that I'm trying to serve my community. And it comes down to the two main commandments, loving God and loving our neighbors. If we get those two, we've got it figured out. Can just keep it to those two commandments and making sure my motives are pure and trying to actually serve and love the people of Huntington Beach.
Yeah. That's really great advice for politics. I think the first two commandments and everything else goes into place because your motives are good and you're doing it for the right reasons, and people will disagree with you for sure. You are representing certain people, and there are people like you who are happy you're standing up and saying these things. So that's a great way of putting it. Unfortunately, we're running low on time, but we always want to end with an invitation, something that the women and others listening at home can do today to start looking forward to getting involved in public service. And I love your story because people told you, you're just a mom, you shouldn't do this. And you fought back on that, right? And said, no, I'm going to do this. There's a lot of people like me who need representation. And I love that because that's so much what our message is at Project Elect, is that everybody, if you care, you're qualified to run for office and you should run for office. So do you have an invitation or something that women can do today or this week to get involved?
I recommend just starting with small things. And that means like you can just volunteer at a local organization or anywhere local. Start at the local level. You can start going to your city council meetings, just seeing how those meetings go and what the issues are at the city level. You can go to your county meetings or even your district meetings, like the school board meetings. See what's going on in the schools. Just starting off with the little things, getting involved that way. I really believe in prayer. I believe in the power of prayer. And if you feel inspired to get involved, then I totally support it. I recommend it. For sure. And if you are serious about running and getting involved in public office, I would recommend reading Running into the Fire, which is another really good book. And I was able to get access to this book by going to the Moms for America event in Texas just this last February. And it is a book that goes through specifics on what women and Christians specifically, it's a book to get Christians to run for public office and why more Christians need to run. Because running into the fire is using the analogy that we're like firemen and we're trying to go into this really hot place where we could easily burn ourselves. It's a very dangerous place we're going into. But if we can temper our bodies, getting used to that heat, getting used to standing up for what we know is right, even if people don't agree, just let go of our doubts, our inadequacies, and our fears, and just say, hey, I'm going to do this because I know it's right. And I want to stand up for my family, other families. It's a battle out there. We got to stand up for what's right, and we need the voices.
Thank you. I love a book recommendation too. We haven't had one of those yet. So thanks. Thanks for the invitation and book recommendation. It's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for taking the time out to tell your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all you're doing. This is awesome.
Yeah. And best of luck as you continue your campaign.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And prayers. I need prayers.
Absolutely. Thank you all for listening to the Project Elected podcast. For free resources and materials, head over to projectelectwomen.org. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as Project Elect Women. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate us, or give us a review on iTunes. So until next time, thank you.